When my parents told me that we were going to the country, I was always over the moon with happiness. I liked spending time away from the city, from all this urban bustle, polluted, smoggy cars, air and all that. One night, I stole our own car to take the local girls for a ride. So you can say that I got behind the wheel for the first time here, although then I got a serious conversation from my father. But I had a great walk then, so everything was justified. I even missed those carefree days a little. I was most proud of our house, or rather, I would even say a full-fledged mansion. Imagine walking past the wooden houses of your beloved neighbors to your hefty 2-story brick monastery. It was a great time. So much water has flowed since then. It all started in this village. Everything will end in this village. My parents, Rebecca and Jack, are very successful people. When my father was 22 and my mother was 18, they had me, James. My father is a businessman. Later, my mother turned into an important bird, worked in the legal field for a while, as well as now, and soon took the place of the boss. He sits in the main office and directs. I decided to follow in her footsteps and plunged headlong into the world of law. In general, as you can understand, our family is well provided for, and in general we did not need anything. However, there was still something missing in the family. Such a small detail to complete the design. Love, my friends. I think that it was the lack of love that caused the malfunction of the entire mechanism. My father is not a diligent family man. Of course, he provided for us and was there if necessary, but somehow I couldn't even figure out how it all happened. The fact is that my father was a real cheater. I knew this because he told me this himself when I grew up, and Mom of course knew too. In general, time passed. When I turned 18, I left my parents' nest and went on a free voyage. And as soon as I left to study, my parents immediately filed for divorce. They reached my adulthood, raised me, and you can think about yourself. At that time, I had already got used to it. I just knew that sooner or later it would happen. They split up, and the two successful people went their separate ways. The divorce was successful. There were no disputes between them. My father went to the capital, and my mother stayed in the village. I probably would have done the same. And what? Clean air, big house, 15 minutes to the city. Everything is there. What else is needed? After graduation, I got a job as an assistant to a cool entrepreneur. Mom, of course, invited me to her office. But you know, she has such a staff of savvy and confident lawyers that I can't reach them. It's not even that I'm not sure of myself. My brains are in place. I'm not a stupid guy. I'm just the type of person who doesn't see himself as a leader. Teamwork is somehow easier for me, or the right hand, something like that. At the age of 21, I married my girlfriend, who studied with me in the same group. Amanda. I fell in love with her at first sight. Petite blonde, cute face, and brown eyes. At the age of 23, our daughter Jessica was born. We lived in our spacious apartment in the city centre, and my mother was a 15-minute drive away, and everything was going great. Even my father came to see my granddaughter. Mom visited us from time to time. If possible, we will go to her. There's also no problem with Amanda. I'm 28 years old now. Amanda and I were going to the village for Mom's birthday. We left Jessica with Amanda's mom, and soon we were on our way to the celebration. Barely parking at our family home, we got out of the car. It's going to be a fun night, judging by the number of cars here. On the threshold of the house, my mother met us. At the moment, she turned 46, and you know what? It was the standard of female beauty. I always paid attention to her appearance, and was always surprised. She didn't seem to do sports. She didn't go on diets, but her shape, you can just drool. Brown wavy hair, a radiant smile. She said some nice things to each other, and headed for the table. It's nice to see that Mom keeps the house in good condition. Clean and cozy, I would even say. All the furniture here is probably my age, but they look like new. And in general, apart from new household appliances, nothing has changed. On the second floor, there was my mother's bedroom with a bathroom. On the ground floor, there was a huge kitchen where all the guests were located, another bathroom and a living room. And after all the greetings, several glasses of whiskey, congratulations, conversations, I went to my din with a glass of the aforementioned drink. It was a descent into the basement, like the ground floor. This was my abode, a spacious sofa in front of the plasma, billiards, table football, a huge bed with a neon red sign on the wall that illuminated most of the room with its light. What teenager has not dreamed of such a thing? Tell me, the Wilt Stream, I'm sure. I went downstairs and took a sip from my glass. I heard my mother's voice from behind. Looking at her, I realized that she was already pretty tipsy. Yes, to recall the past, so to speak. And there is a lot to remember. She came up from the side. I remember how I always scolded you for that sign. Looking at her, I keep thinking of you. Do you come to my room often? Yes, sometimes I go down to watch TV to remember the old days. What are you doing here? Let's go to the guests. Everyone will be leaving soon. My father appeared on the stairs in time, dispelled my thoughts, and served as the reason for the separation of my mother's hugs. Phew, it was already night. Only the most persistent remained. Half of the guests have already left. Only me, Mom, Dad, Amanda, and a couple of Mom's friends are left. Everyone was already pretty drunk except Dad and Amanda. So it's not surprising that for Mom and me, the fun continued. While everyone was sitting at the table, my mother and I decided to warm up a little to the music. I was very surprised by her zeal. Such energy would be envied by young girls. I must admit that I was openly looking at my mother. I don't know how our dance looked from the outside, but I was pleased. Besides, who would think anything of us? We are mother and son, after all. Thoughts began to slip through his foggy head. No matter how hard I tried to drive them away, it turned out badly. Basically, it was the fact that my wife was in the immediate vicinity of us. However, all good things come to an end. So who should I take home? Dad asked when the song ended, causing Mom and me to pull away from each other. The two remaining men accepted the offer without hesitation. Well, shall we go? Amanda asked me as she came up to me. I couldn't take my eyes off my mom. Despite the fact that everyone was going to leave, with a glass in her hands, she smoothly wriggled to the calm song playing after the previous one. James, are we going? I broke away from my mom for a while and found the strength to answer. Listen, can we stay the night? More, won't you have enough? And even more so, she lowered her voice to a whisper. I don't want to stay in your mom's house. Don't get me wrong, something inside me told me that I should stay. It's like an inner voice. Well, come on. I rarely see my mother anyway, and I probably stayed overnight 100 years ago. Well, what? Are you going? My father came up to us. I want to stay. I objected and immediately called out to my mother. Mom, can I stay with you? She came to her senses abruptly and calmly replied, Of course, the whole house is at your disposal. Well, I looked at Amanda. If you want, your father will take you. Of course, let's go. My father supported me. Amanda thought for a moment and rolled her eyes and answered. Okay, let's stay. Well, that's great. As you wish. Let's go, guys. He shouted to the remaining ones, and those two got up from their chairs. The night was gaining momentum. It took another hour or so. While Amanda was bored at the table on the phone, my mom and I continued to have fun. Pretty drunk, we continued to dance. Amanda, what are you talking about? Come to us. I decided to amuse my wife. Thanks, but I've had enough. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Thanks for the evening. Everything was great. She turned to me and my mother. Well, we'll sit down for a while. Amanda nodded and went upstairs to the guest bedroom. Well, madam, have you had enough? Or are the years taking their toll? I jokingly asked my mother. You better watch yourself, young man. She snapped with a grin. Then, I suggest we go down to my room and continue the fun there so that Amanda doesn't get in the way of music. Come on, I don't mind. We took the rest of the alcohol, some snacks, and staggered down to the basement. The fun continued. With energetic music and dim lights, we warmed up our bodies in the dance. Aren't you tired yet? I asked mockingly. When I drink, I always want to move around. She answered joyfully. I haven't danced like this for a long time. How long has it been? Probably since my youth. Well, you'll give the young ones a head start. A purely male opinion. I am pleased. She smiled playfully and turned her back to me again. How long have I been waiting for this? The music had long since changed to another one, but we still continued at the same pace. We were already moving without paying attention to the song. I didn't understand what we were doing, but I couldn't stop it. I'm not familiar with such dances, she said. We danced like that for a few more minutes. But then the most embarrassing moment in my life happened. We got too carried away dancing and made love. I couldn't believe it. At that time, Amanda was sleeping in another room. I don't remember exactly how long it lasted, Shame. The first feeling that came over me was shame. Alcohol no longer clouded the mind so much, and the barriers of moral principles began to rise again instantly. James, wake up. I opened my eyes and jumped up abruptly. My wife looked at me with puzzled eyes. What are you doing? What is it? She asked, perplexed. Where's Mom? I looked around the room. Nothing betrayed or hinted at the sin committed with my mother. At first I thought I was dreaming, but after sniffing around, he's sleeping in his room upstairs. And what's that smell? And why did you decide to sleep here? Amanda answered and asked, what have you been doing here? Me, God, what about us? The realization hit me like an avalanche. I was ready to fail in one place. Okay, let's go take a shower and get ready. We'll have to pick up Jessica from Mom. I took a quick shower, packed up, and hoped to find my mom at the kitchen table. And my surprise, I did not notice her. Having had a hasty breakfast, I was still waiting for Mom to come down to us. But when about half an hour had passed, let's go. We won't wake her up when she oversleeps. Call her, Amanda suggested. I was rushing between two fires. On the one hand, I wanted to leave as soon as possible. And on the other hand, I wanted to see my mother. But the first one still took off. 10 minutes later, we left the village. 2 weeks later, my relationship with my mother became very bad. We couldn't be in the same room together. And as soon as I tried to start a conversation about that night, Mom just got mad and almost sent me away. Over the course of the month, we met less and less often. We have completely cooled off towards each other. What happened on the night of the 16th of July of the 22nd year created a huge gap between us. At each meeting, we were tormented by a sense of shame and reproach. All attempts at conversation were in vain. Normally, we saw each other only a couple of months later at a family dinner in the village. And then we didn't sit for long. Suddenly, my mother felt sick at the table. She turned pale and ran to the bathroom, covering her mouth with her hand. About 3 months later, we learned the news that Mom had put the house up for sale, and she had gone somewhere without saying a word to anyone. I am still plagued by feelings of guilt and shame. Probably like her. It is a pity that what happened turned out to be stronger and put an end to the relationship between mother and son. The night of the 16th of July of the 22nd year will forever remain in my memory as the best and worst in my life.